Formula One will return to Las Vegas in 2023, and at least one existing Grand Prix will drop off the calendar to cope with the championship's expansion. With China's race returning as well, plus Qatar's 10-year deal beginning, Las Vegas makes it 3 more Grand Prix to add to F1's original record 23-race 2022 plan. But F1 is contractually restricted to a maximum of 24 races. Clearly, something has to give to facilitate a relentless push to find new Grand Prix. Las Vegas will host a new Saturday night race in 2023 on a track that incorporates the city's famous strip. We reported last year that negotiating a Las Vegas race to be the 3rd Grand Prix in the United States had emerged as F1's leading calendar priority. Negotiations with the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, which is the main body in the tourist location, have accelerated in recent months, and a deal has now been done on a reported initial 3-year basis. A specific date has not yet been given, but it will be held sometime in November on a Saturday evening in Las Vegas to run early morning European time, with Thanksgiving weekend mooted. The 50-lap race will be held on a long but simple 3.8-mile layout with 14 corners, and has been designed around the city's landmarks, hotels and casinos. That avoids the mistake of when the city was last part of the F1 calendar. The Caesars Palace Grand Prix was held in 1981 and 1982 and used a dull, repetitive layout in the car park of the famous hotel that gave that race its name. The new race was formally announced in Las Vegas on Wednesday evening, with Liberty Media chief Greg Maffei in attendance, a sign of the significance of this deal to F1's US owner. Liberty Media has pursued the championship's expansion in the US at length since taking over the commercial rights at the start of the 2017 season. The Las Vegas race follows the addition of a Miami Grand Prix, which will debut this May and will be held a few weeks after the United States Grand Prix is traditionally held in Austin. F1 will even help promote the Las Vegas race itself in conjunction with its owner Liberty Media and another of the company's subsidiaries, Live Nation Entertainment. Maffei said that F1's confidence in this unique opportunity is evident in our decision to assume the promoter role. Las Vegas' likely addition in late November will complicate the familiar end-of-year schedule in the Americas, which usually comprises the race in Texas, one in Mexico, and another in Brazil between the middle of October and November. But this is mainly a big test of F1's increasing interest in the US, as the country hasn't had 3 races in one season since 1982, which was also the last time Las Vegas was on the calendar. Among F1's various stakeholders, there is strong belief that there is enough interest in the States to support this many races. The calendar editions under Liberty Media have been a mix in terms of venues and the types of deal. Zandvoort's return tapped into world champion Max Verstappen's popularity and added a nostalgic race at an old school track, as has Imola, now it has a permanent deal as well. The much sought after Miami and Las Vegas Grand Prix represent destination races, even though the circuits themselves don't look particularly exciting. And Qatar and Saudi Arabia are 2 high-paying Grand Prix that have contributed to F1 recovering from the massive financial impact of the coronavirus pandemic, which caused income to drop $900 million in 2020. Some of these races joined the schedule in 2021 and helped create a record 22-race calendar, with Miami's first race growing that to 23 races in 2022. In total, even though a new race in Vietnam failed to materialise, F1 has now successfully negotiated deals for 6 new or returning permanent races since Liberty Media took charge. Now the Las Vegas race is confirmed, a second round in China is considered the most likely option for a new Grand Prix in the near future. But a possible return to Africa for the first time since 1993 has also been hinted at several times. In fact, F1 has so much interest in new races that it could easily sustain a 30 Grand Prix calendar if it wanted, according to CEO Stefano Domenicali. The expansion has been a point of contention because of the risk of oversaturation, as well as the human impact of such an exhaustive schedule for those that work in F1, as such a long season has made the much disliked triple headers a normal component. This is why the idea of rotating races has been increasingly talked about as the solution for the coming years. But even that will mean some Grand Prix drop off the calendar, even if only temporarily and intermittently. There is a limit of 24 Grand Prix in the Concord Agreement, And while this could be increased, even F1 knows it would be impractical to just keep adding races. With the races set to join the schedule for 2023, F1 would go immediately beyond that number if every existing track remained on the calendar. This season had 23 races scheduled, with Las Vegas, China and Qatar set to either join or rejoin next year. But that original schedule included Russia, which has already disappeared, and its replacement is likely to be Qatar, which was originally not going to have a race this season. So that keeps the 2022 calendar at 23 events and is one less race that F1 has to worry about fitting in for next season. But it only saves one spot, so that's still 25 potential races before we even get into the possibility of that second Grand Prix in China or a new race somewhere else. An existing Grand Prix has to go, so which ones are at risk? Those definitely out of contract as it stands are France, Belgium and Mexico. Others have options beyond 2022 that are almost certain to be exercised. And one more race that had a sketchy future, believe it or not, is Monaco. F1 was known to want more money from its supposed crown jewel, which has lost its long-held special deal and must now pay a hosting fee. In 2022, its unique schedule of Thursday practice, Friday as a day off, has been replaced by a conventional timetable. And it looks increasingly out of step with modern F1 as a circuit that is almost guaranteed to produce a dull race with frequent calls for a track redesign. But Monaco remains on the calendar for now, and while Mexico switched to a new business model for 2021 and still needs to negotiate a new deal beyond 2022, so far there has been no indication that will be lost either. So that leaves France and Belgium as the most vulnerable races. Of those two, France is the one that looks the most likely to lose its place imminently. The French Grand Prix hasn't quite worked since it returned at Paul Ricard. Its first race in 2018 was blighted by a combination of a woefully boring race and miserable logistical problems that created massive traffic jams and caused many fans to miss entire sessions of on-track action. And there's simply not a lot of faith that the quality of racing on that track is going to improve much either. But it might not only be France at risk. Domenicali has said that some of the current Grand Prix, plural, will no longer be part of the calendar. The Belgian Grand Prix at Spa is part of the fabric of F1, but Domenicali says it's not enough for a race just to have pedigree anymore. They must also demonstrate that they are keeping up. Spa is trying. Its greatest weapon is its fan base, with a mix of traditional fans and new ones brought in by the half-Belgian Max Verstappen. A major redevelopment is taking place ahead of this year's race, including a reprofiling of Eau Rouge. This comes in the context of a series of frightening Radillon crashes in recent years, including the accident that killed Formula 2 driver Antoine Hubert. But many of Spa's changes are being designed with a bid for top-level motorcycle racing to return to the track, not explicitly to please F1. So who knows if this will go far enough. And with limited infrastructure around the track in the Ardennes forest, plus a tendency for massive traffic jams, Spa may well slip from its long-held position as an untouchable race. In fact, as more and more potential new races emerge, that could become the case for other European races as well.